Hello, I am Tarik Toros. Welcome to What's Happening in Turkey. We are in the part of the world where the news changes fast. New headlines break daily. But what really matters is what unfolds behind the scenes. This week, we are not just looking at what happened. We are asking, why did it happen? And what does it mean? The Kurdish peace process has collapsed. In Turkey, dialogue between the government, the pro-Kurdish DEM party and the PKK, an armed Kurdish group based in northern Iraq, has come to a dead end. Let's rewind. 8 months ago, Devlet Bahçeli, leader of the ultranationalist MHP, a junior partner in Erdogan's ruling coalition, made a dramatic public appeal. He called on Abdullah Öcalan, the imprisoned founder of the PKK, to officially dissolve the organization. Öcalan, held in total isolation on İmralı Island for the past 26 years, has long been a central figure in Kurdish-Turkish relations. This public appeal could have marked a turning point. Under European Court of Human Rights rulings, Öcalan is entitled to a right to hope, the possibility of eventual release if he renounces violence and contributes to peace. At the end of February, Öcalan responded to the state's overture. Then in May, the PKK announced at a congress that it was officially disbanding. The government, however, remained silent. For 8 months, the process has been entirely one-sided. Kurdish leaders have issued calls for dialogue and reform, only to be met with bureaucratic indifference or political stonewalling. And yet, the Kurdish demands were not radical. They simply asked the Minister of Justice to review the cases of sick, elderly, and disabled prisoners and release those already eligible under existing law. No constitutional amendment, no new legislation was needed. Just a moral and legal commitment to apply current laws fairly. Instead, the government refused to act. Even some prisoners who had served their full sentences were not released. Many are elderly or terminally ill, left to languish behind bars despite the severe risk to their health and lives. Still, the Kurdish political movement maintained calm and continued to support peaceful steps. The PKK disbanded. Öcalan gave a conciliatory response. Everyone expected Ankara to reciprocate, but the Turkish government chose silence. Recently, a limited prison reform was announced. It proposed house arrest for seriously ill inmates, a move presented to the public as a humanitarian gesture. Yet even this fell short of expectations. The proposal gave final say on releases to government-controlled evaluation boards, stripping away judicial oversight and opening the door to arbitrary decisions. In reality, it would further erode basic human rights. And so, after 8 months, Kurdish hopes for peace were dashed again. Any further progress was deferred, perhaps indefinitely, until after Parliament's summer recess in October. A DEM party member summed it up bitterly. The mountain didn't even give birth to a mouse. A fractured opposition in crisis. While the government stalls on the Kurdish front, the opposition is in deep disarray. Turkey's main opposition party, the secularist Republican People's Party, CHP, is facing 2 major crises that threaten its political survival. First, the imprisonment of Istanbul's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, a rising political star and key Erdogan challenger. İmamoğlu has been jailed for over 2 months. Despite legal appeals, there is little sign he'll be released soon. On the contrary, police raids on the city administration continue. Hundreds of municipal workers and officials have been detained or arrested. What once seemed like a distant possibility, replacing İmamoğlu with a government-appointed trustee, now appears to be a real plan in motion. Meanwhile, the CHP remains Turkey's top party in national polls, but it faces a second blow. A court case challenging the legitimacy of its party congress held 18 months ago. If the court rules the congress invalid, as many fear it will, the current party leadership could be ousted, and former leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu might return to power. Kılıçdaroğlu, who lost the 2023 presidential race to Erdogan, is reportedly eager for a comeback. But the party is deeply divided. The rift between the old and new leadership is widening. There is no unity, no clear path forward. For the ruling party, this internal chaos is a gift. Because in today's Turkey, the government survives not despite public frustration, economic collapse, or rights abuses, but because the opposition is fractured and weak. That's the story of the year so far, and the second half doesn't look any brighter. Blacklisted for life. Turkey's new form of civil death. What's unfolding in the field of human rights in Turkey is unlike anything in the country's 102-year Republican history. The Turkish government now systematically targets individuals, civil society organizations, and entire communities, not only with criminal investigations, but with social and economic exclusion. This didn't start overnight. Two events paved the way. The 2013 Gezi Park protests, which ignited a massive civil movement. The 2016 failed coup attempt, after which the state declared a sweeping state of emergency. Since July 2016, more than 1.5 million people have been investigated. Tens of thousands have been jailed. Hundreds of thousands have lost jobs, without trial, often without evidence. Using emergency decrees, the government erased people from public life. It wasn't just about firing public workers. It was about dismantling their lives entirely. Those blacklisted were barred from public sector jobs. Even in the private sector, they were flagged and excluded. Spouses, children, and extended families also suffered. Running a business became impossible, subject to inspections, fines, and arbitrary seizures. The most recent wave of economic persecution targeted popular businesses, including restaurant chains and dessert brands, solely for alleged connections to people blacklisted by the state. Their so-called crime, being related to or employing someone dismissed under the emergency decrees. These crackdowns make one thing clear. In Turkey, the rule of law has collapsed. What remains is rule by decree, and fair. 12 years since Gezi. Even silence is a crime. In the summer of 2013, environmental protests in Istanbul's Gezi Park evolved into a nationwide call for democracy and civil rights. One iconic image stood out from those days: the standing man. He didn't chant or wave a sign. He simply stood still and became a global symbol of non-violent protest. 12 years later, on the anniversary of Gezi, people returned to Taksim Square to stand silently once more. No slogans, no signs, no resistance, just presence. But even that was too much for the Turkish government. 19 people were detained, simply for standing still. They were later released under judicial control, a form of continued surveillance and restriction. This is where Turkey stands in 2025. A country that ignores the rulings of the European Court of Human Rights. A country that overrides its own constitutional court. A country where stillness is treated as subversion. No justice for the imprisoned. No peace for the free. A nation losing its future. Life in Turkey has never been harder, especially for the young. Opportunities are scarce. Freedom is shrinking. Basic rights, free speech, fair trials, human dignity are under siege. The so-called Kurdish peace process is frozen. The main opposition is consumed by infighting. The courts are politicized, and daily life is governed by fear. That's why millions of young Turks dream not of reform, but of escape. A new life abroad, anywhere but here. Because in today's Turkey, people aren't just struggling for rights. They're struggling to exist. As repression deepens, public frustration simmers. I am Tarik Toros. Thanks for watching What's Happening in Turkey. See you next week.